Project 571, genetically engineered vampire created to destroy evil.
What do you want?
We need your help to kill a vampire.
Malleus Maleficario. It was written by a witch. The first witch. Titania.
That was a little snippet from The Witch's Hammer, the first film I ever solo directed, and it's just been remastered and re-released on Amazon. So if you like witches and vampires, then please do check it out. Anyway, let's get on with this week's episode.
I think I'm better off backing myself than other people's comments, because I've done that in the past out of my own insecurity, constantly thinking other people know more or have more experience, or they must have a point if they're so confident themselves. And whenever I'd leave my instinct behind and go with them, I regretted it literally every single time.
Hi, Jim here, and you're listening to the Honest Filmmaker Podcast. This week, I'm speaking to filmmaker Tim David. Hi, Tim. How you doing?
Hi, Jim. Good. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you. So you're a filmmaker, but it looks like you've started in kind of agency commercials, that kind of stuff. So what's led you to now move into feature film production?
A really bad client for 2 years making me do horrible commercials. It was pretty good motivation for me to do a film. But I've been looking at film scripts for about 15 years. Open assignments from the studios, and that. The only one I liked that I thought was any good was turns out this was years ago. Was written by Mike White, The Good Luck of Right Now. But I had a lot of friends in the industry, and we had raised enough money to shoot a low budget film. We just didn't have the perfect script. I was working on one, and so was my wife, and she's a very talented writer. And when I read her script, I was just amazed at how good it was. And so we passed it through the industry and just said, hey, what do you think of this? It got remarkable feedback, and we attached our top pick for cast immediately based on the strengths of the script and went from there.
Lovely. So this is the film you're talking about is Kangaroo Island. Yes. So just for everyone, can you set it up for me? What's it about?
Kangaroo Island is really about a family that was destroyed by a tragedy and then actually mends itself via another tragedy. So it's really about life and how people are meaning-seeking animals compared to the animals in the wild. And Kangaroo Island has a very wild sense to it. It's like a zoo without fences. You really feel your animal instinct there because it's a large island, but it's remote, and it's just chock-a-block full of animals: echidnas, koalas, kangaroos, sharks, snakes, lizards, anything. So it's really about how we reconcile with the idea that life has no meaning, really. So we have to go and find it for ourselves. And it's also about how in our lives, when you reach middle age or 35 to 45, a bunch of things have happened over the last 15 years that can be life-altering moments. And that's what's nice about this script. It really follows some events that happened over 15 years. So they were periodically that broke the family apart. But they all come to a head in a short period of time, and that's when the movie takes place. So it's very condensed with drama and story and character arcs and turns, and that's its strength as a script anyway.
Yeah. And genre-wise, drama / coming of age, where would you put it?
Drama with a serious splash of comedy.
Yeah.
So, if you look at this, one thing about life is that it is as tragic as it is beautiful, and it is as sad as it is funny. So it's a film about, bad things that can happen that you don't plan for, but also life is about those unplanned humorous moments where we just crack up laughing because an incident happened that was either ironic or silly or coincidental. Not silly, there's no silly humor in it, but it's very it's very funny at times. And the biggest compliment we get, I think, is that by the end of it, people come out both laughing and crying, because the biggest joke is literally at the saddest moment of the film. But it's very meaningful. It's well earned. All the jokes are well earned, and so is the drama. So yeah, it's been enjoyable to watch audiences. In fact, it's on Instagram. You can see the audience feedback. It's been phenomenal. A little bit different to IMDb and Letterboxd. IMDb, we have an average of over 8 out of 10 in the US. I emailed them and I said, why do we have, I did the sums and it's 8 out of 10. They said, we weight it down to what we think the honest one is. I said, well, we haven't had anyone to give us, 10s, yet a lot of people do. And I realized what it was. It was actually at the end of screenings, we just say, if you liked it, review, because that's the only marketing independent cinema has. And our target audience is 35 plus. So, they're not the people racing home to put a photo on IMDb. And we have haters and trolls, of course, but everyone does.
Yeah. Part of the business, unfortunately. So you said your wife wrote the script. So
yes.
Obviously that's you go, right, we're going to make this feature film. It sounds like you live in the place the film shot. Is that fair to say?
Well, actually, we lived in New York for 20 years, but we had a house on Kangaroo Island that we would go to. Yeah.
Yeah. So was it a case of, was it designed at all? Was it like we could actually make this because we know the area and we can live here? Or was it purely this is a story she wanted to tell and you've kind of decided to make it?
It's a great question. So ours actually happened. We had a story in the States that was a $5 million budget, and we had raised, over half, and we were just having trouble getting the next bit. And my cinematographer, who saw photos of our property on Kangaroo Island, said, "Why don't you film something there? I'll come over and shoot it for free." And then I asked the investors. I said, "Look, if we shot something else other than the film that you wrote and agreed to invest in, would you still be interested?" And they said yes. And so because we did know Kangaroo Island, we knew that it was a great community full of people that want to help. It's in South Australia where there's a decent film community. And with the US currency and the Screen Australia offset, it made sense to make a really small budget film in Kangaroo Island that was really well contained in a small space, and everything sort of became feasible. But again, we really needed a great script, and so we had a few writers have a crack at something, and my wife's script worked out. But she knew she was writing for Kangaroo Island, so everything was sort of inspired by Kangaroo Island. The fact that it's a very animalistic place, and all the locations in it are true to the locations that are there. We kept all the names. We didn't art direct anything other than, we had an art director, but he had no budget. He was a super talented guy. David Ockenden, and we just made the most of what was there. It's a beautiful place. What I did invest in is beautiful lenses. So they're vintage lenses, Canon K35s they're called, and they make everything look beautiful. Just as soon as you frame something up, it's like, oh my god, that looks great, especially on a long lens. So that just saves on art direction, and it saves on lighting too, because it absorbs a lot of light. The only tricky thing is focus. It has a shallow depth of field, but that's a quality that I like. And so that's sort of how it came about.
Okay, so then the other thing I noticed at the beginning of the film, you've got some national bodies, tourist boards, that kind of stuff involved. Is that, I don't know what the situation's like in Australia, but are there certain things you have to fulfill to unlock any funding and cooperation from them? Or is it just at a script level? How's that work?
Script level, what you need to do in Australia is have, we've got a little bit of money from Australian tourism, but that was an aside thing. I come from a marketing background, and when they read the script, they said, "Oh yeah, we'll give you a little bit of money, and it should be good for the state," and it has been. But as far as the government funding that you get, they're tax obliged. So it's in legislation that they have to give you half your 40% of your budget back if you shoot a film in Australia and it has a guaranteed theatrical release. In other words, a distributor comes on board at the script stage and says, "Yes, I will put this in cinemas. At least that is my intention." And if it's a known distributor, then the auditors look at that and go, "Oh, okay, well, if they're going to distribute it and it's a real film and they've done it and they can submit proof that they did it, then that's what triggers what's called QAPE, or the Screen Australia producer offset."
Right.
But it doesn't matter. The quality of the film doesn't matter at all.
Okay. Well, it's a good film, so don't worry about that. So then the thing I was going to ask you was, so you've done lots of commercials, sort of high-end commercial stuff. Um, did that help? Obviously, it must help with making the feature film, but you were talking about chatting to investors, that kind of thing. Would you liken that situation where you're kind of pitching, maybe to do a commercial, you're pitching your film? What did you learn from the commercials that you brought into feature film production?
Look, I think that the awards I'd won for the commercials anyway, and the talent that I was working with in commercials, I think give investors confidence that if I decide to do a film, I can do it. I had a lot of good fortune in the States of working with some of the best cinematographers around, Philip Lassord, Philip Rossello, and Linus Sandra and Dean Cundey. I mean, these are people who have won Oscars. They're at the top of their game. And because I had clients like Estee Lauder and blue chip clients, you just learn a lot working with these people. And, there are some commercials where it's 30 seconds and it's a 2-day shoot with Kendall Jenner and all the trucks and madness. And then, but another shoot we did was for Michael Kors. It was almost like an editorial thing with Zendaya, Michael Kors, and Martha Hunt. And we had to shoot probably 30 scenes in a couple of days, different locations around New York. So we had a crew of 5, and we were jumping in helicopters and doing all sorts of things. But, with an absolute tiny minimal crew, again, a beautiful camera and beautiful lenses. So I knew how to, I think I knew as a director from commercials when to spend time on something and when I could afford to just charge through with speed. And again, as long as I had beautiful camera and lensing and the type of framing that I wanted. And also from doing a whole bunch of commercials, I have a technique where I just use little thumbnails. So I know on set where I want the camera to be. I know the lens I want. It's all written there. So when the crew comes, there's a plan. And I always work with people that don't disagree with me, typically anyway. So that makes things go faster. That was before I came to South Australia. And then, and editing, I like editing as well. I've always edited my work. So I do work with editors, but I work with collaborative editors, again, who will not argue with me. And that helped know when I had something and when I didn't. So, again, there'd be a lot of scratching heads when I'd be like, well, we've still got 2 more shots to do in this setup. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't need them. We can move on because I've actually decided it's going to be a single take from that angle, and I don't really want to come around and see anything else in this scene.
Yeah, definitely. That's that preparation. I have that myself. I can't go on set without some sort of Bible with me to know what I'm doing, because it just allows you to do that, edit in your head, know exactly what you.
Question for you then: Do you ever have dreams before shoots where it's all going wrong because you're not?
Oh God, yeah.
They're worse. There's actually a movie made about it called The Bear, I think, or something. Right. Black Bear. I don't know. With I can't remember who's in it, but it's so funny, and it was literally inspired by that. But it's just about a shoot where everything goes wrong.
Yeah. It's funny. I was talking to a filmmaker the other day about being in a situation when you. And I don't know if you've done it, but I've done it in the past, never again, not prepared. And then somebody asks you a question and you just go completely blank. You've just got no answer because you've not done the homework. And I think it is your brain protecting you because you just can't figure out what's going on. So now when I go to set, I've got my storyboards. I don't have to shoot those. I can deviate.
Right, yeah.
But just knowing that there's a book somewhere, and I'm always going to my wife, where's my book? Where's the book? I need the book. I've got to look at the book.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, no, I need that book as well.
Yeah.
When those questions come, I just say, great question, don't know. Ask me in 5 minutes. I'm thinking about something else.
Yeah. That's a good response. So talking about, people who don't disagree with you, your wife's the scriptwriter. So my wife's my producer. How do you manage that? And do you ever disagree on where something's going, or?
We disagree a little bit. She was very respectful, knowing that the script gets handed over to a director, typically on a movie set. And I was respectful, going, look, this is your movie, so come and have a say. But she I always let her win at the script stage when I wanted to make a change or whatever. And I probably edited, 10% of that script to her 90%. And she always had the final say. what the script was. And I think probably the same can be said for decisions on set. I would probably, let her have 10% and go, all right, or I would go, I would concede that she'd be right. But usually I know what I want, and I think I'm better off backing myself than other people's comments, because I've done that in the past out of my own insecurity, constantly thinking other people know more or have more experience, or they must have a point if they're so confident themselves. And whenever I'd leave my instinct behind and go with them, I regretted it literally every single time, bar maybe one or two in 20 years of working. So I've learned to back myself at this point, which I think is really important for a director. And no, Sally was good. She even got an accommodation away from me for the whole shoot. So she
nice.
And she took the kids. So just to make sure we didn't, have any Barneys in front of people or each other, and just to give ourselves some space, because that's a pressure situation. I can't imagine what it would be like although I've had some awful producers, but I've mostly had great producers. And I imagine being married to a producer still would be hard, but if you guys click, then it would be fantastic, I imagine, more often than not.
Yeah, it's the ultimate somebody who's got your back in any situation and kind of protects you. So that's fab. And that trust in your gut thing, I think the skill comes in being able to interpret what your gut's telling you. So if you're, like you say, if you think with all your being, we need to do it this way, and there's a reason, you've got to try and figure out why. Otherwise you do get 100 people going, well, why are you doing it like that? This would be easier. Why don't we do this? Why don't we try that? So I try to understand what about that moment is telling me to do it that particular way. And it's not always easy, because it is, like you say, it's instinctual. You think, that's kind of the way it needs to be.
And I think also knowing that when someone comes up with a better idea than you, that's a good thing, not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Don't get all closed up and go, no, shit, they're going to lose confidence in me if I suddenly abort mine and go with that. There's nothing better than a DP or someone that says, why don't we shoot it like that? But do you find typically with that happens, you just go, oh, great, if it's a good one. And otherwise, if it doesn't feel right or it confuses you, then I sort of go back to what I was going to do, even if other people are confused by it. But that comes down to editing too. Mm-hmm. Like if I know what to edit, then I just tell them to. But I had situations where I just wanted a 3-second vignette of people laughing at a table, and my AD wanted to mic them, and the sound person wanted to mic them, and I just wanted them to laugh and crack jokes and be inappropriate with each other to get an authentic thing. And it was very early on in the shoot, and I was waiting and waiting and waiting. I didn't even want it to be lit too, but I was waiting and waiting, and they just decided, they were going to mic them, and they were going to, like the hell out of it, or put up a million different stands. It was almost an FU to me to some degree, but it was bizarre to see that. And what should have been a 1 hour thing, went for about 3 hours, and that was very early on. So I had to ruffle some feathers there. But yeah, you really need crew to understand that what you're doing as a director. And having said that, there are some directors these days, especially with government grants and things, and trying to bring up minority voices that don't have experiences, which is great. They will rely on and need the support of experienced crew. So I think the crew has to, firstly, it's great to get people that have worked with you before, because then they just trust you. But when you're working with crew that haven't worked with you before and they think you need more help than you do, that can be very frustrating, because everyone's intentions are good and they're right. But boy, there just has to be, it's the director's film, and people have to understand that. It's not the producer's film. It's not the first AD's film. It's not the actor's film. It is the director's film. It's their name on it, the first or last in the credits. And it's their vision. And if they're a good director, then they're going to need that support and faith. And if they're not a good director or they're new, then they might need, that help. But it's important for crew and director to know who's who in that situation, what's what.
Definitely. And it is tough for first-time filmmakers or student filmmakers, because if you're making a film fresh out of uni, you're probably all at the same experience level. So there is a little bit, people can get chips on their shoulders as to why do you know better than me? Or you can get in a situation where you're working with somebody who is undermining you and who is there's a bruise there that just keeps coming back. So
Yeah.
when you do hear a good idea, you're not open to it because you're just like,
No, exactly.
damn this person.
Yeah.
My the way we look at it now is we're so careful about the crew that we collaborate with because I want to enjoy the shoot. I don't want it to be a
No, exactly.
you know.
Yeah, shoots are stressful enough. You really do want to enjoy it.
Yeah.
I have a really funny story on that though. One of my first shoots in Canada was a very low budget film for Maxwell House, where it was all about brewing some good. And the idea was we could have spent $200,000 making this commercial, but instead we spent 10 and gave 240 to a music school for underprivileged kids. Anyway, it was pretty low budget, but my line producer said, "Hey, you'll be happy. I was just doing a shoot with Dean Cundey, who shot Jurassic Park for Steven Spielberg, Apollo 13, and a million others, Halloween, and he wants to come and do the spot." So I'm like, that's incredible. So I caught a train with him, get along with him. He's this really nice guy, a lot older than me, super experienced, obviously. It was one of my first shoots. He would have thought I was, kid. Anyway, he lit the scene so well, even though he was doing it within our budget. I had to say, can you not light it that way? Because it's sort of supposed to feel like we spent no money on this commercial. And so imagine, telling Spielberg cinematographer how to light the set. And he was like, okay. And he just did it. And I remember he was a pretty straight guy. And then at the end, when I said goodbye, he just said, "Hey, if you ever want to work again, let me know. That was fun." But it's amazing how these guys who are at the top of their game, they don't have that ego or that attitude or that need, or nothing ruffled him at all. It's, so if you're doing a student film or doing something, like nothing should ruffle you, period. You just understand, what the hierarchy is on set, and stick to that hierarchy no matter who you are or how great you are. And then, help people. I mean, he did other things on set, like lit the pack at the end and all this. That was absolutely beautiful. I'm like, wow, that's amazing. So it's just, it's a weird thing navigating that. But I find that when you work with the best of the best, they're very collaborative with no ego whatsoever.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. So that's crew. So talk to me about working with actors. What's your approach? How do you deal with it? How do you get the best out of them?
Well, my wife used to act. With commercials, I was that terrible director that would give line reads. I'd say, "No, you've got to say it like this, or it just won't be funny." It's like, what don't they understand? Why don't they get? Why don't they get the comedy? And they're going, "Well, what's the emotion? I have to understand why I would do it that way." So it took me years to work that out. But now for the drama on Kangaroo Island, I really needed them to be at the top of their game. So I just asked them, how do you get to the top of your game? These are people that have, won awards and done beautiful work that I've looked at, studied, and gone, these actors are incredible. What do you need? And we just did a little bit of rehearsals, a little bit of discussion. But I've just learned to really respect the craft and the preparation required. With Rebecca, anyway, and on Kangaroo Island, we did a lot of Zoom calls from afar and discussed the script and discussed the character a lot. And when she came to set, she just crushed every scene. So it was fantastic. But yeah, working with actors, it just depends on who they are and what they want. And doing commercials with Kendall Jenner, she just wants to be told exactly what to do, but then she'll do it absolutely no problem, since she does an incredible job of it. Whereas there are other people, like Adelaide Clemens, I think, comes in with, she can be like, "No, I got it. And she doesn't want too much input. She just wants to do it. And when she does, you realize you're working with an athlete at the top of their game, because they do wonderful things. If it's not what you want, for a certain reason that was a miscommunication about what the film needed at that time for that scene, then it does become a discussion and a debate. And it's like, oh, shit. And for the actors anyway, it's like, oh, my God, like, I've now got to go round into this headspace. I don't know if I can make it. And typically would be like, "Oh, hang on a sec, it's just acting. I mean, just say the words, everything's going to be fine." But, the best actors have their technique and they have their research, and you have to respect that. So for me, it's just all about asking, how do I get the best out of you? And then listening to what they say. If they want more input, great. I love nothing more than giving input. I'm not great at it. I'm a work in progress on that sense. It was only my first film, but the TV show I spent way too much time trying to craft the actors. That was a big learning curve. I do think with a drama like this, sometimes when there are comedic beats, I find that I have to really drill down on the actor exactly how it should be delivered in the end, but not with a line delivery, but with the emotion. So there's a luggage joke that goes throughout my film where she made a lie about her luggage being lost, whereas she didn't really bring any luggage because she didn't even want to come. She got drunk and ended up on the plane. So, that lie blows out. And so because Kangaroo Island's a small town. So when people say, I heard you lost your luggage, I would have to, when you read the script, it's a funny gag every time it gets bigger and bigger. And so it's tempting for actors to know it's a joke. So I just asked them to deliver that line every time like they were talking about something they heard about your terminal illness. And so this thing about losing luggage became so serious to a small community, and then they really wanted to find the luggage for her, but it's just a lie that's gone out of control, and it gets funnier and funnier, but it really absolutely relied on that trick. And sometimes you have to do that for comedy. One of the first commercials I did was called Broken Escalator, and these people were going on an escalator and it stopped, and they called for help like you were stuck in an elevator instead of walking the stairs because they were too lazy. It was a thing about heart health and getting fit. And so in the audition, when there's no escalator but just a blank room, I said, you're stuck in an elevator and you've got to call for help. And when they did that, the audition was incredible. They were like, help, help, the stress and anguish. And then the guys that got the two people that got the lead role for the commercial, there were two of them stuck on an elevator. I told them what it was. They go, it's hilarious. And so they would get on the escalator and boom, and they would suddenly be so big. And it was like the whole thing, they were playing the comedy. And it wasn't nearly as good. So I had to show them their audition. I say, when you thought this was an elevator, you were so convincing that it was hilarious. But now we can just feel that, you're on an escalator calling for help and it's a gag. So they're the tricks that I think you can do as a comedy director to help the actor pull off a joke perfectly.
Yeah.
Because it's not an actor's job to be a comedian,
Yeah, definitely. And it's part of comedy is surprise, isn't it? It's something unexpected happening in a certain circumstance, and if you sense at all that the actor's lining that up or knows that's coming, it just sucks all the surprise out of it, which is the bit that makes it funny. So I'll just finish with the question I ask a lot of filmmakers. So what do you wish you'd known when you started making this feature film?
I wish I had had more time with the crew about what my approach was going to be on set and how fast I want to move and why. So I think that was it. And the importance of working with crew that understand you and have worked with you before and have really enjoyed working with you. I think you gotta surround yourself with the right people. But otherwise, that was really it. I think there was a lot of unnecessary confusion on set, which would have been solved by me spending more time with some of the key players. And I did meet, I thought I'd done that work, but it wasn't until I was probably into day 3 where I realized I hadn't done it enough with certain people. So that was it. Just making sure people are on side. How about you? What do you typically do?
Yeah, I think that's a really good one. I think knowing at the beginning, getting those. I mean, what I've done in the past is we'll shoot but I'm on much lower budgets than you. I would shoot a section of the film, say like a month before. We'd do like a 3-day shoot. to get us
Yep.
up to speed, to get everyone working together. Then a month
Yep.
later, we start the main shoot. That little sprint shoot has probably got a much smaller crew, but it's the key personnel. So you kind of establish that group around you, a little bit like you said, where you were doing your commercial. There's 5 of you, and you're sort of running and gunning.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I would do now for definite. But we did it last time, and it really helped solidify that little team, so that when all the rest of the people turn up, you've got all these distractions and noise. Your core team kind of understand you.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing was like we did 6-day weeks, so only one day off.
Mm.
We shot 100 scenes in 23 days. So that was the one day off was not enough.
Yeah.
So I would always do 5 weeks.